What's up, everybody? It's your buddy Eastern Newborn here, and today I got a book I didn't realize I had that my dad gave me. It's a book that my grandpa Darrel meant for me, and this is going to be the first time I will ever read it, and I wanted this to be authentic. It's my grandchild, Donald Jeffrey, with love from Grandpa Sanders. Date October 3rd, 1999. Grandfather's memories to his grandchild. This is all some other stuff. My full name, James Darrel Sanders. I was given this name because my first name was after my father. My middle name was after a childhood friend of my dad. My birth date and the place where I was born, November 7th, 1944, is Hobbs, New Mexico. Who took care of me when I was a child? I lived at home with my mom and dad. My earliest memory. We were living in a mobile home in Hobbs. Carnival came to town and set up right across the street. The night lights at night and the activity really attracted me. I cried. What was happening in the world when I was born? World War II was coming to an end. The President of the United States when I was born, Truman. My mother's full maiden name, Virginia Frances Clark. Her birthday and place of birth, June 21st, 1919, in Snyder, Texas. My mother's best story about growing up. She locked her older brother out of the house during a storm. Okay, Gramps. My favorite memory of my mother. She baked hot rolls and allowed us, my brothers, and sometimes our neighborhood friends to have hot battered rolls. I never seemed to get enough. It seemed I could have eaten them forever if Mom could have kept them coming. She was also very emotional and cried easily. My father's full name, James Moman Sanders. His birthday and place of birth, April 1st, 1919, Brown County, Texas. My father's best story about growing up. He was diagnosed with tuberculosis when he was a teenager. He recovered and always contributed to God's healing him. My favorite memory of my father. My dad was a minister. I remember sitting on the front row when I was very small and watching and listening to him preach. I also remember him singing and playing the guitar. He had a very tender heart. He was kind and commanded respect. When I was little, I thought he walked on water. My brothers and sisters' names: Doyle Jean, 3/27/46, Jerry Dwayne, 11/16/48. How we got along. We fought like cats and dogs when we were young. I was the oldest, so I usually came out ahead in battles. Our biggest argument. I thought I should get privileges they didn't because I was the oldest. The games we played as children: Cowboys versus Indians, baseball. We went swimming a lot. Now that we're all grown up, Jerry died in an automobile accident in '76. Doyle teaches school in Roscoe. We see each other 3 or 4 times a year. A funny story about us. Because I was the oldest, I would win any physical battle with my brothers. When I was 15, they ganged up on me and taught me a lesson about bullying. I came to realize they weren't always going to be smaller than me. Our most memorable family reunion. I remember Christmas, 1958. We spent we spent at our grandparents' at Snyder. We drove to San Angelo to spend Christmas Day with cousins and other relatives. My greatest strength. My moral values are very high. I am very conservative. I stand by my beliefs strongly. My greatest weakness. I am very tender-hearted and tend to get emotional very easily for a guy. Same here, Grandpa. One thing I love to do. I enjoy photographing and videotaping family. I enjoy watching sports. My favorite in order: Dallas Mavericks, Texas Rangers, Dallas Cowboys. I enjoy gospel music, Southern style. Going to gospel music concerts. One thing I hate to do. I don't enjoy cigarette smoke. It's a pet peeve. I don't care to water wrestling and boxing. To watch. Sorry. To watch wrestling and boxing. I don't care to be around alcoholic beverages. Sounds like Grandpa. I always laugh when I hear a funny story or watch an amusing TV show. I'm a big fan of Bob Newhart, Bob Hope, and Robin Williams. Well, Grandpa, hopefully you get to see Robin Williams. When I look at the world, I see opportunity. We are so fortunate to live in America. We have the freedom to do and be what we choose. One favorite memory of home. Oh, sorry. Hold on. I hate crying. Baking hot rolls. We had 20-cent hamburgers as a treat once or three times a week. We had paper routes, and occasionally mom or dad would help us make our routes in the car. My parents made our house a home by listening to gospel and country music on Zurf out of Del Rio, Texas. We listened to Louisiana hayrides before we got TV. We would drive to the TV store where they had TVs on in the window. We would park and watch shows through the window. God, Gramps, why would you do that? The yard I played in was small. We had a willow tree out back. We had an open lot next door and across the street where we played a lot of baseball. Our next door neighbors, the Tidwells, across the way. Don and David were good friends. Ed Mont Ed Monstrons across the street. Mary Rose and Daisy May. I chose a bedroom. My brothers and I shared a bedroom. My favorite hiding place. Sometimes I would climb into the attic. We also had a mobile home and backyard. I'd go into sometimes. The town where we lived, Hobbs, New Mexico, Big Spring, Texas, and Colorado City, Texas, where I played with my friends. Our backyard, the lot next door, basketball courts at Houston Junior High. Someone I respected in my hometown. I had more respect for my dad than anyone. Also, my fifth grade school teacher was Bobbitt. Oh wait, Miss Bobbitt, and my sixth grade teacher, Mr. Darnell. My favorite store and why I loved to go there. There was a resale store in our neighborhood where I could buy funny books for 5 cents and trade 2 for 1. The biggest event in our town was basketball season. Hobbs won 3 straight state championships in 1956, 57, and 58 before we moved from there. Place where we worshipped. I remember the first Assembly of God in Hobbs. Then there was a smaller church, and then Dad built and pastored a church called Full Gospel Holiness, I think. My father worked at. Oh, Dad worked at the post office in addition to preaching and pastoring a church. During the day, my mother would stay at home. Most were in those days. Practical joke that I played or that was played on me. I hid in the closet in my mom's bedroom while she was taking a shower. When she came out of the bathroom, I jumped out and scared her. The chores I had to do. I carried out the trash and sometimes ran to the store for mom. She would always buy me a soda or something like it for going. On summer days, I like to play baseball, go swimming. Hobbs had a minor league baseball team of the St. Louis Cardinals, and sometimes I got to bat boy or work the scoreboard. On winter evenings, I enjoyed. I read a lot. I was a funny book fanatic. I also enjoyed reading biographies of famous people when they were kids. My favorite sports. Basketball was my favorite because basketball was so big in Hobbs. Baseball was pretty close behind that. Okay, sorry. Swimming was also a favorite participating sport. My greatest victory, my eighth grade instrumental team went undefeated. I don't know what that word is. I scored 16 points in one game, the most I ever scored. My biggest sports defeat and how I overcame it. I coached a little dribbler basketball. We had a big lead midway through the fourth quarter, so I took my best players out. The other team caught us and beat us. My father taught me to stand for what I believe and not be afraid to show my emotions. The sports that you and I enjoy together. You are a little you are a little guy as I write this. So mostly it's going to be backyard and popped into the blade pool together. It really tickles me for me to get in there with you and play with you. What an ice cream cone cost when I was young. A nickel and dime. What an ice cream cone costs a day. $1 per scoop. Huh. I'm sorry. The kind of car we drove. The earliest I remember was a 1949 Ford. We had a 1951 Ford, 1955 Chevy Bel Air, and a 1957 Plymouth. How people dressed. Girls wore bobby socks and hoop dresses. Girls were required to wear dresses to school. Boys had to wear belts in their jeans. Shirt tails had to be tucked in. Boys had crew cuts or hair combed into a ducktail. How boys were expected to behave. We were expected to have our shirt tails tucked into our pants and wear a belt in our jeans. Most exciting invention at the time. Polio's conquered with polio vaccine. Man going into space. And in 1969, landing on the moon. Pretty cool. My first pet. A black and white Pekingese named Sally Ann. My favorite pet. A tan Pekingese named Ginger, and a female offspring named Tuffy. I like that name. The animal that makes the best pet and why. I am partial to dogs, particularly small, long-haired dogs. The different kind of pets I've owned: dogs, cats, goldfish, and parakeets. Parakeets. I always wanted not answered. Some of my pets' names: Sally Ann, Ginger, Biggin, and Tuffy. The first person who told me about God, my father. My first communion not answered. My favorite person from the Bible, Job, because he would not denounce God, even after losing his family, wealth, health, friends, and worldly possessions. The first time I knew God was real, I never doubted. At time I had to stand up for my beliefs. When I first left home for the service, Grandpa was in the military? That's very surprising. Well, let me scoot back. Try to get the lighting on my face. I'm not that good at this stuff. How my beliefs have changed since I was a child. When I was a child, I would have had a bad thought and fear I would go to hell if I died in my sleep that night. I was nearly grown received before I realized God does not require us to be perfect. My favorite verse as a child, Job 19:21 to 27. And I actually did see, there was a little tiny sticky note. Have pity on me, my friends, have pity, for the hand of God has struck me. Why do you pursue me as God does? Will you never get enough of my flesh? Oh, that my words were recorded, that they were written on a scroll, that they were inscribed with an iron tool on lead or engraved in rock forever. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, and not another. How my heart yearns within me. That was the verse. Okay. The most wonderful thing about my father, he openly expressed his love for me and my brothers. He was not afraid to show his emotions. My father was especially good at resolving conflicting situations in a reasonable manner. My father let me help by carrying lumber and holding pieces of wood for him to saw while he was doing carpentry work. He would let me nail a little occasionally. My father wanted me to be a musician. He wanted me to play the violin. I took violin lessons for 2.5 years. I thought it was a sissy thing, and Dad recognized I didn't like it, so he let me drop out. I know he was disappointed, but he never expressed it. The things my father taught me about God. To trust that God would make everything all right eventually. God loves us as much as someday you will love your own child, and that's a lot. The most wonderful thing about my mother, she could be funny when she was in that sort of mood. My mother was especially good at sewing just about anything, and boy, could she make some great hot rolls. She encouraged me to work hard and spend money wisely. Lessons I learned from my mother: to not speak without thinking, because sometimes you can say hurtful things when you are mad that you can never take back after it's been said. The sweetest memory of my mother, holding my baby brother when she came home from the hospital with him after he was born. I was barely 4 years old, but I remember missing her so much before she came home. The things my mother taught me about God: God can forgive even when you have done outrageous things. Hold on, early school years. I'm just checking through this to see. Damn. There's a lot. The school I attended, Edison Elementary, Edison Apaches. My first basketball number was number 21. My favorite teacher and why? Mr. Darnell in sixth grade. He told stories of when he was young. He was close friends of Audie Murphy, the most decorated hero of World War II, and at that time, a famous movie star. My least favorite teacher and why? I really didn't have a least favorite. When I went into fifth grade, Miss Bobbitt was intimidate looking, and none of the kids wanted to be in her class. I was chosen for her class and really liked her a lot. My best and worst subject in school. Spelling was my best. I always won the class spelling bees and represented my class in the school spelling bee in the fifth and sixth grades. The friends I played with after school: Donald, David, Tidwell, David Duffield, J.T. Lindley, the first one to tell me who Elvis Presley was, Mary Rose, Daisy May, Etta Monstron, Dwayne Rogers. Dwayne Rogers, that sounds familiar. The after school activities I was involved in: violin lessons, basketball, number 21 for the Edison Apaches. In sixth grade, we finished third in city. The school, a school event I will never forget. Spelling bees in fifth and sixth grade. We had to stand at the podium before the entire school. I was mortified and froze up. In the fifth grade, I lost by misspelling leopard. I lost by misspelling leopard. In the sixth grade, I went out by misspelling aluminum. The school I attended: Houston Junior High, Hobbs, New Mexico. Big Spring, Texas, and Colorado City, Texas. My favorite teacher and why? Miss Miller in my senior year. She demanded more and didn't let you coast. I didn't make very good grades, but she really boosted my confidence when she called me and told me she felt I had one of the 5 keenest minds in my senior class, but I didn't apply myself. My best subject and why? English and math I did well in. Never had to study. Biology and science were the most difficult for me. A coach I admired. My basketball coach, my junior and senior years, Cato Matthews. He coached, taught school, and also pastored a little Baptist church. He had been a personal driver for Admiral Nimitz during World War II. That's pretty cool. A hero I wanted to be like when I was in high school: Audie Murphy, World War II hero and a movie star. Also, Willie Mays was my favorite baseball player. Popular fads when I was in high school: hula hoops became popular in 1958. 45 RPM records were popular. I collected baseball cards. The friends I spent with, the friends I spent time with. Pete Garrett was my best friend. Growing up, my favorite songs and musicians were Ricky Nelson and Everly Brothers were my favorite. were my favorites. Instrumentals were my favorite music, like Stranger on the Shore. I also liked Billy Vauchus, Percy Faith, and similar big bands. As I got older, I discovered Southern gospel music. Now, I like to listen to Southern gospel. I also listening golden oldies, especially 50s and 60s music. Music lessons or classes I took: violin lessons in fifth grade, sixth, and partially in the seventh. Street guitar for a few weeks in about fourth grade. My favorite In the Garden, especially sung by Tennessee Ernie Ford. My grandmother's and my favorite song: It's Shouting Time in Heaven by the Hoppers, Glory Road by Anthony Berger, Ivan Parker, and Kirk Talley. Go Ask by the Hoppers, We Have This Moment, Gathers, Supper Time by George Yunts, Eastern Gate, Lily Weatherford. The first time I drove a car, Dad let me steer our 1955 Chevy Standard Shift when I was about 12 or 13. Dad taught me to drive in our 1957 Plymouth Standard Shift. When I got my driver's license, I sorry, I failed my driving test the first time. I passed barely the second time around when I was 16. My first car was a green and white 1955 Chevrolet. I paid $250 for it and paid it out at the bank at $25 a month for a full year. The first time I shaved, I think I shaved about once a week at about it. Okay. The first time I voted in an election. In 1968, I voted for Hubert Humphrey over Richard Nixon in the presidential election. The first time I asked a girl for a date. Becky McCracken was my first girlfriend at about 12. I don't know what we ever actually had. I don't know that we ever actually had a date. She was the first girl I ever kissed. My closest friend when I was growing up. I had several. Dwayne Rogers, JT Lindley, David Duffield. My best friend today. I have several. Don Harvey is probably the closest. Also Tom Berkloser, Bill Forbes, and Mac McCowell. Being a friend means someone you can talk to about anything, especially when things are not going well. You are not only my grandchild, you are also my friend because God, I hate when I get teary. Almost everything I do, I want you to be with me. I want to be with me. Um, Everything I do, I want you to be with me. You seem to enjoy your time with me, and I feel I want you to be a part of everything I do. God, I've seen you be a friend when you kiss my owie when you perceive I've been hurt. You help me take my insulin shot so I won't cry. Try. God can be a friend when. I'm so sorry. It was very emotional. God can be a friend when things are not going well. You can pour your heart out in prayer. He also blessed me beyond descriptions when things are going well. Okay, sorry that every time he mentions me, I just can't help myself. My first crush. I fell in love with Debbie Reynolds when I went to see the movie Tammy and the Bachelor when I was about 12. My first girlfriend. Becky McCracken was about 12. I was 13. She, with her mother, brothers, and sisters, attended my dad's church. My first kiss. Becky and I kissed in the back seat of my dad's 1955 Chevrolet. That was as far as it went. On dates, my girlfriend and I often went to the movies. We always sat together in church. My heart was broken when Becky broke up with me. She said, just she. Okay, sorry, hold on. She just said she didn't want to go steady. Here's the last page. He didn't get to finish all of it. First time I rode a bike, I was about 7 or 8. I was embarrassed because just about everyone in the neighborhood already could ride when I was learning. The best vacation we had as a family. We went to Colorado Springs. The next year we went to Houston, Galveston, and San Antonio. A favorite fishing and hiking or camping trip? Dad took us fishing on the Pecos River. I went swimming because I didn't care for fishing. My first plane trip. I took your dad on a trip over the Grand Canyon when your dad was 13 or 14. I have always wanted to go to Niagara Falls and the Black Hills of Dakota. The most the most exciting trip I've ever taken. Your grandmother and I went to Copenhagen, Denmark in 1979. We also made a one-day trip to Sweden. Is there any more? Gone. Come on, Grandpa. I swear, if I find like a hidden note or something, I'm gonna cry. Alright. Well, that's the end of it, guys. So I decided to read that today because today was his birthday. I don't remember a lot about my grandpa. He died when I was very young. Sorry. But my last memory of him was when we were at the hospital. I was probably around 4 or 5. And I think it was my dad that came and got me, took me into the room saying, "This might be the last time you get to see Grandpa." And I didn't know what that meant at that time. But I went in there and my grandpa looked at me. He reached out to my hand and I took hold of his hand and I looked up at him. "Come on, giraffe. Come on, you old giraffe. We gotta go home. We gotta go watch funny movies." And his last words that I do remember were, "I'm so sorry, little baboon. I gotta go." And at that point, I let go of his hand. My dad took me out of the room. It was the next morning when they told me that he had passed. I didn't realize that until I went back home. There I was crying. Grandpa Darrel, I'm glad I got to spend time with you. I really treasure those memories. Like the zoo memory when I kept on going into all the enclosures, you had to come get me. I was so stupid. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I hope to see you someday. I hope you're up there with God and that you're having a great time with Grandma and everybody. I love you, Grandpa Darrel. I love you with all my heart. Guys, that's the end of this video. If you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see some more of my content, subscribe.
As always, I will see you, my handsome bros, and my beautiful sisses, in the next video. If you don't mind, I gotta go cry. Easter newborn, out of here. Goodbye.